So with Glass coming around the corner in just a couple of days, I decided I'm going to give you guys my reviews for Split and Unbreakable, starting with Unbreakable. So let's get started, shall we? Unbreakable is written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan, and it stars Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson. So basically, this is M. Night Shyamalan's second film after the huge success that was The Sixth Sense. Studios wanted his next film quickly, and so within a year, he had given us, in my personal opinion, his best film to date, and that is Unbreakable, which is a very slow-burning superhero-like origin story. So basically, let's get started with the story of this movie. So basically, this movie starts off with a train wreck, and in that train wreck is the sole survivor by the name of David Dunn, and he comes out without a single mark or scratch on him, and throughout him discovering who he is and why he was the only survivor of this train wreck, he is then pursued by a man by the name of Elijah Price, who also goes by Mr. Glass. And he's trying to prove to David that he is, in fact, a superhero out of a comic book story. Like, they exist, they are real, and Elijah's out there to prove that he is who he says he is. And with that, David slowly comes to terms with his newfound power and that he doesn't know he had, and he goes off and does what he has to do to prove to the world he is in fact a superhero. Now I'm going to start off by saying this. There's nothing I dislike about this movie. This movie is perfect in my opinion, so I'm pretty sure you guys know exactly what my overall grade is going to be, but let me dive into what I like about this movie. This movie is so far ahead of its time upon its release, because at the time, superhero films were non-existent. The only ones we really technically had at that particular point was pretty much X-Men. X-Men was pretty much the first film, the first superhero film that was coming out, and it was out the same year as Unbreakable. But this movie it's not your conventional superhero film. This movie is a very slow film. It moves at a very snail's pace, but it does it beautifully. It was very, very detailed in what it was. What M. Night Shyamalan was setting out to do was tell a grounded, realistic take on a superhero's origin, and that's what I really value about this movie. And it's one of the things that makes it one of his most tense films, and one of his most imaginative films in some ways. The other thing about, so basically it's realistic approach to a superhero origin that I really very much value and enjoy about this movie. David Dunn's superpowers. Now, to me, this is what I also loved about the movie entirely, was the fact that he doesn't walk through walls. He doesn't have laser eyes, like Cyclops. He can't fly. He can't do any of those things. He's got strength that he doesn't know he has. He has never been sick a day in his life. He can't get hurt necessarily. Anytime he looks back on his past, he realizes, I've never been hurt in anything I've ever been involved in. And, I'm not going to tell you what his weakness is, because if you haven't seen Unbreakable, that's one of the things you come to learn through his progression of being who he is. So I'm not going to give that away. But I also love the cinematography in this movie. It's very specific. It's very, it's got a lot of greens and purple tones to them. Like, Knight knew exactly what colors were going to define good versus evil, and I really like those choice of color palettes that he used. The score in this movie has become iconic since 2000. It is a beautiful score. I personally don't have the soundtrack, but now that I'm doing this review, I'm thinking I gotta order the soundtrack, because it's one of those soundtracks that you listen to and you're like, that's the Unbreakable score. Like, you just know, like, once you've seen Unbreakable, this movie sticks with you enough, especially even the music of this movie, it sticks with you hard enough to the point of where you will recognize it no matter what, if you hear it elsewhere. This movie has got some very intense moments that I wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting this to be like The Sixth Sense, where a lot of people were. This movie did not do great when it came out because people were expecting the next Sixth Sense. when he gave us a completely different film. But I think because of the fact that not only was it M. Night Shyamalan and Bruce Willis reuniting, they thought they were going to get this big, grand horror film, which we got more of a dramatic thriller. More of a psychological dramatic thriller, not in the vein of Sixth Sense. But some of the moments in this movie had me on the edge of my seat. Some of them had me going, "Ooh, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next?" And some of them, for PG-13, at the time they were boundary pushing, in my opinion. But that's one of the things I enjoy about this movie and M. Night's writing as a director and a writer. He is phenomenal with what he tries to, with what he wants, he gets, and he does it very, very well and effectively. And I love the climax of this movie. The way this movie ends, it feels like it wants to set itself up for a sequel, even though he knew at the time when he made this movie, obviously now we've got Split and Glass, but at the time he felt like this was it. There was never going to be a sequel. He had no intentions of going towards a sequel. But fans were clamoring for the sequel. Obviously, then we got Split, and now we got Glass coming out this Friday. So, for me, it was one of those things where it's like, you know what? I could be totally fine if I never got a sequel to this movie. But I would definitely not be opposed to a sequel. It was one of those endings that just felt like, yeah, I would like to see this go somewhere else and go in a different direction. So we'll see what happens this Friday. But like I said, there's nothing to dislike about this movie. I loved everything about this movie. This is by far my favorite M. Night Shyamalan film to date. Nothing has gone above it. I had a hard time deciphering whether or not it was The Sixth Sense above Unbreakable for me as far as which one I liked better in his filmography, but it stands at Unbreakable, and I think a lot of people will agree. So what am I going to give this movie overall? You guessed it, obviously. This is a masterpiece. This is by far one of my all-time favorite superhero movies, and it's also it's the best M. Night Shyamalan movie we've gotten yet, in my personal opinion. Everybody else is going to have their own, but this one is my personal. So that is my review of Unbreakable. I will have Split coming to you guys very, very soon, and then hopefully this weekend I'll have Glass up as well. So what do you guys think of Unbreakable? Let me know in the comment section down below. Let's have a discussion about it. Let's see what you guys' feelings are on this particular film. And until next time, take care, and I'll see you guys later.